Thank you all for coming. My name is Lois Bauer Bjornson. I am the Southwestern Pennsylvania Field Organizer for Clean Air Council and the host of Crackman Tours. Since 1967, those of us at Clean Air Council have dedicated ourselves to fight for everyone's right to breathe clean air and live in a healthy environment. Today, we mark 100 days of a new administration, and every one of those 100 days has seen harms visited upon everyone who calls this place home. A course of destruction and chaos has been unleashed. As have been well documented in the press, the administration has been robbing people of our dignity, hurting us in our pocketbooks, wrongfully persecuting our neighbors, and pillaging our climate. And today, I'm hoping that we can have a blunt conversation about the damage their polluters first agenda is doing to our health. Over the last 100 days, the administration has been hard at work to dismantle long-standing agencies that protect and help Americans. They have been ignoring real issues and problems by simply saying they don't exist. Or if they do exist, they will go away on their own. Or if they don't go away on their own, the problems are actually good. Or if the problems are not good, then we did something to deserve them. Last year, Clean Air Council applied for and earned a grant from the EPA. We spent a lot of time and resources crafting the grant application and gave a lot of thought to the communities that we were trying to help. We designed a robust air monitoring program to assess the real-time air pollution trends from the Delaware River City refinery. The system would have used advanced optical remote sensoring air monitors and a crowdsourcing app called Smell My City. The resulting map would have been shared with community members, health experts, and policymakers to inform next steps about how best to protect residents from air pollution. We would also have created a network of local organizations in order to prepare impacted residents for potential incitements of the refinery, like actual fires and dangerous short-term air pollution releases. We would have been in a position to alert residents to harmful air pollution emissions and assist residents in making air pollution complaints to regulators. But none of that happened, thanks to the administration. Trump's EPA sent Clean Air Council notice that they will terminate our grant. We won't be able to reduce health conditions like asthma and cancer from air pollution from the industry and refinery. There will be no air quality map. There will be no community-driven disaster network or response. Just remember, when they say they are cutting waste, they mean you. They see you as the waste. They see your need for clean air and clean water as a waste. The termination of this program will have real-life consequences and impacts for those in Delaware City being exposed to harmful air pollution every day. More people will get sick than would have otherwise. Some may even die. We're holding this event today to put focus and faces to the statistics that remind everyone of the human cost of the administration's 100 harms in 100 days, and to call on everyone listening to be better than them and to demand better of them. We have free speech and we demand to be heard. First, I'd like to welcome Vanessa Lynch with Mom's Clean Air Force. Vanessa has some harrowing news to share about the endangerment findings and rollbacks of the EPA. Vanessa?
Thanks, Lois. My name is Vanessa Lynch, and I'm the Pennsylvania Campaign Coordinator for Mom's Clean Air Force. Mom's Clean Air Force is an organization of over 1.5 million moms, dads, and caregivers united against air pollution and the urgent crisis of our changing climate to equitably protect children's health. The unprecedented assault on environmental safeguards carried out in the Trump administration's first 100 days has the potential to cause great harms to families across Pennsylvania, especially those living closest to sources of pollution. From granting pollution exemptions to some of the dirtiest power plants in the state, to undermining the very fabric of the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA's, power to safeguard the air our children breathe through rolling back the endangerment finding, the health cost to Pennsylvania families will be extreme. I've witnessed firsthand the impacts the oil and gas industry has had on my community in southwestern Pennsylvania, where I live with my 2 children and husband. A well pad has been fracked in a medium-density residential area of my local township, which means there are houses, parks, daycare centers, assisted living facilities, and schools located nearby. The endangerment finding was issued by EPA in 2009 in response to a Supreme Court decision determining that greenhouse gases, the climate pollution emitted when fossil fuels are burned for energy, should be considered a form of pollution governed by the Clean Air Act, our nation's bedrock clean air legislation. Based on extensive scientific evidence, EPA found that climate pollution does indeed endanger the public health and welfare of current and future generations, and issued the endangerment finding in acknowledgement of its clear responsibility to protect people in the U.S. from the health impacts of climate change. The finding allows the agency to put protections in place for methane and other harmful pollutants from the oil and gas industry, directly impacting the air my family breathes. Children and young people are especially vulnerable to the health impacts of climate change and air pollution, in large part because their bodies and brains are still developing. Revoking the endangerment finding threatens EPA's ability to protect us from climate pollution at all, and the health of our families, communities, and future generations is at stake. Beyond the frontline impacts that directly affect my family, climate change has created numerous dangerous realities for families in Pennsylvania. Severe storms are becoming more frequent and more severe, like yesterday's storm, with 70-mile-per-hour winds ripping out trees, tearing off roofs, and causing hundreds of thousands of people to be without power. Pennsylvania also ranks as having the highest incidence of Lyme disease in the country. There are dangerous flooding events that have occurred across the Pittsburgh community, and we have even had severe wildfire smoke from Canada reach us here. The impacts of climate change are all around us. Climate change is real and the science is clear. It costs families and communities a fortune as healthcare costs rise and lives, homes, and jobs are lost or damaged in Pennsylvania floods and increasingly dangerous weather. Meanwhile, it's clear that the protections in place now have done no damage to the fossil fuel industry, who continue to post record profits while our children, families, and communities pay the price. Pittsburgh communities know the historical costs of unmitigated air pollution. We call on our leaders like Senators Fetterman and McCormick to continue keeping polluters from running roughshod over vulnerable communities, so families like mine can know their right to breathe clean air is being protected. On behalf of our 104,000 Moms Clean Air Force members in PA, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Vanessa. Next we have Carrie McDonough. She is the Assistant Professor of Chemistry at Carnegie Mellon University. Carrie will be talking about the negative impact this administration has had on research. Carrie?
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Carrie McDonough. I've been organizing with the Pittsburgh chapter of Stand Up for Science, which is a nationwide movement that advocates for academic freedom and continued funding for scientific research. I'm also an assistant professor of chemistry at Carnegie Mellon University, but I'm not here today to talk in any official capacity for those organizations. I want to tell you about what I do as an environmental scientist and why I do what I do, and how what I do is currently being threatened by Trump, Musk, and their undeniably authoritarian regime. When I was little, my parents taught me to appreciate the natural world, and eventually I went on to get a PhD in oceanography. I studied the chemistry of the world's oceans and atmosphere, and I started learning about how humans have altered that chemistry. I've been really fortunate to travel all over the world, learning and teaching, and now I'm proud to lead a research group in environmental chemistry. My motivation to work hard every day is to try my best to leave the world better than I found it, and to make sure that my students get to have the same kinds of exciting opportunities that I've had. I study the impacts and health risks of toxic chemicals on wildlife and on humans. We're developing more comprehensive ways to capture human exposure to PFAS, forever chemicals. We're studying how different occupations and occupational activities can result in harmful chemical exposure. We've particularly done a lot of work with firefighters. We've also been studying how these forever chemicals and other contaminants accumulate in environment and aquatic wildlife. I have an awesome, talented group of scientists who work with me from all over the world: India, Sri Lanka, China, Pakistan, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, collaborating and learning from each other as they work on these projects. I love the research that we do, but I also want to talk to you about what that scientific research does for you. Modern life leads to all kinds of chemical exposures every day through our air, our water, our food, and also through products we use, what we wear. All of this together is called the chemical exposome. So science like ours helps determine what kinds of chemicals you're exposed to every day in your daily life and what that might mean for your health. We work very closely with lots of federal scientists at the EPA and the CDC, helping to produce lots and lots of data on health risks of chemicals using different models and from different scientists. And the goal of all of this is to converge on protective regulatory levels that can protect you from things that you're exposed to every day, often without your knowledge or consent. We're helping to ensure that all people have clean air and water, and we're teaching the next generation of scientists who will go on to work in our federal labs and our universities. This is how we develop the valuable expertise we need to solve environmental problems and protect public health. Now let me tell you about Trump's first 100 days and what they've done to scientific research, like the work done by my group. For one, they've terrorized our colleagues, students, and friends from other countries who are here legally to learn, teach, and do research. They're kidnapping international students and scientists and putting them in detention centers with not even a thought to due process. Students who left their families behind, some leaving their countries for the first time, for the opportunity to come and learn in the United States. They're terrorizing these scientists because they want to keep them silent. They're also trying to use federal funding to control our universities, what we scientists work on, and who is allowed to do that work. The NIH, the largest funder of biomedical research in the world, funded $660 million of health-related research at University of Pittsburgh last year. Within the NIH, they have an Institute for Environmental Health Sciences, NIEHS, and they do a ton of amazing work on how we're exposed to harmful pollutants and how they affect our health. For example, they do research on widespread contamination of forever chemicals in drinking water and how those affect our immune systems and our ability to fight off infection. They also fund work on disproportionate exposures and subsequent health problems experienced by individuals living on Native American reservations, which tragically are often relegated to highly contaminated land. The Trump regime is unceremoniously terminating many NIH grants with little to no explanation. They're slashing funding to universities and they're putting new strings on the funding that remains. The NIH's terms and conditions for awards changed on April 21st. All new awards to universities now have to certify that the recipient, meaning the university, must not operate any programs promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. So they're giving universities the choice. Do you want to do NIH-funded research, which is the majority of research at a lot of universities, or do you want to create a welcoming environment for all of your students, faculty, and staff? The Trump regime wants to penalize scientists and universities when the research they do doesn't agree with their own priorities. They're doing this by silencing our students, withholding our research funding, and dismantling large parts of the federal agencies that are essential to funding and doing cutting-edge research. The consequence will be that our exposure research will not serve you if it happens at all. They want us to erase certain words from our work, like indigenous, disparity, environmental justice, because they want to erase marginalized communities who are disproportionately impacted by environmental pollution. If this continues, and if scientists at our universities and our federal labs comply, you won't be able to trust our science anymore, or the information that we give you, because our messages will be censored and distorted by the Trump regime. This is fascism, and our environment is just collateral damage to them. We cannot solve today or tomorrow's most pressing environmental problems under the MAGA regime. How will we understand and predict and protect ourselves from effects of climate change on our water quantity and quality, storm frequency, spread of new and existing disease if we aren't allowed to acknowledge climate change? Not only do they want to prevent new research, they intend to terminate the EPA's 2009 endangerment finding that is the foundation of EPA regulations to reduce climate pollution. They want deregulation of the fossil fuel industry, undoing decades and decades of painstaking, taxpayer-funded research that is now established science informing us of the harms of climate pollution for our health and for the health of future generations. How will we ensure that people working in manufacturing, construction, mining, or as first responders, firefighters, are protected from harmful chemical exposures at work if there are no scientists left employed at CDC NIOSH, the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, where they test and certify respirators, study occupational exposures, and improve safety for mine workers? They've fired the majority of their scientists, including at least 200 here in Pittsburgh. How will we understand the health impacts of air pollution on people living in fence-lined communities if we can't talk about inequalities? The Trump regime is shutting down all environmental justice offices and related initiatives at the EPA. They're ending global air monitoring programs. How will we know what we are exposed to that might cause health problems if they terminate environmental monitoring programs? Ignorance is not bliss. Exposure to toxic chemicals doesn't go away when we stop monitoring. We just lose our ability to protect ourselves and identify those responsible for the harmful pollution in the first place. We need to unite under our shared appreciation for this earth, our humanity, our empathy, our ingenuity, our independence. And I'd like to end on that note with a call specifically to our universities and their faculty, who I think have a pivotal role to play in this fight. I want to see our universities stand up and defend our students and faculty's rights to free speech, freedom of expression. And even if they don't, I want to see our faculty and our scientists organize, strategize, and resist either way. This isn't about your job or your grant funding. It's about being a decent person. It's about the first reasons way back you decided you wanted to do this job, to leave the world better than you found it. Fighting back won't always feel good. It might mean losing funding, might not be good for your career, might not earn you praise. But I urge you now more than ever, above all else, keep your integrity. The trust of the public is precious and essential if the data we produce is going to make a difference for environmental quality and for human health. Thanks.
Thank you, Carrie. That was tremendous. Next, we're going to hear from Allison Steele. She is the Executive Director of the Environmental Health Project, who will discuss the health harms that result from the administration's deregulatory agenda. Allison?
Good morning. My name is Allison Steele, Executive Director of the Environmental Health Project and Pennsylvania native. At EHP, we believe that people should be able to live free of pollution from the oil and gas industry. But unfortunately, the Trump administration has already taken, or is attempting to take, in just its first 100 days, measures that will mean greater harms to the people of our state, our nation, and our world. And I'm speaking specifically about deregulating the fossil fuel industry and defunding clean energy initiatives. Pennsylvania already has extremely lax regulations and poor enforcement of fossil fuel activity. My organization, EHP, has been tracking shale gas policy and adverse health outcomes near industry activities for over a decade. And there are dozens of peer-reviewed epidemiologic studies and hundreds more investigations that point to health harms, such as respiratory and heart diseases, hospitalizations, negative birth impacts, mental health issues, and cancers. We've also seen negative economic impacts in areas hosting shale gas infrastructure, evidence of population decline as people move out of highly fracked counties. And for the people left behind, we're not talking enough about the negative economic impacts of people missing days of school or work, or being hospitalized, or covering increasing medical expenses as they get sicker. These negative impacts from our continued dependence on fossil fuels are felt beyond frontline communities too. Methane is over 80 times more potent as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide in the short term, and it leaks from gas wells and pipelines, contributing to increased storms, wildfires, heat waves, poor air quality, vector-borne diseases, and property damage here and around the world. We cannot continue, let alone increase, our dependence on fossil fuels. We need a rapid and just transition to renewable energy in order to reduce the health harms from fossil fuel development and to bolster a vibrant economy powered by clean energy jobs. These shifts were already in the works, but they are now hitting roadblocks put in place by the Trump administration. At a time when we are seeing a need for more energy production, Trump's administration is actively gutting funding projects that could help us meet that need. For instance, the administration announced it would terminate $20 billion in climate grants from the EPA's Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, money already appropriated by Congress that would support some 2,000 clean energy projects and the jobs to go with them across Appalachia and other rural areas that have been dependent on the fossil fuel industry historically. These are not the actions of someone who cares about the well-being of our region or our residents. Stronger regulations on fossil fuels and stronger support for renewable energy and energy efficiency projects will improve public health, reducing adverse health outcomes from pollution and bolstering our economy with a growing clean energy industry. But not if the Trump administration continues to act against the public's interest. We need his administration to stop the attacks on common sense and economically beneficial programs like the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and invest instead in clean jobs and public health. And we need that to happen before another day goes by. There is no time left to lose. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. I wanted to thank everyone for coming today. But as you leave here today, I want to ask you, ask yourselves, is this what 100 days looks like? What can we expect from the next 3 years? This is not meant to demotivate you, this is meant to motivate you. I want you to remind yourself that you cannot just submerge your head and wait to be rescued. You can't breathe that long. We are going to have to work to make sure that we prevent as much of this harm as possible. We owe that to each other. I hope you learned something that you can take with you. And I hope everyone here is listening to our message today, speaks out, stands up, and pushes back. Thank you.